we can vibe out for the night. Stepping outside for a light. No coke and I just smoke vapor. No.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Vanessa Rufus. I'll be your host for the next 2 hours. We certainly have a lot to get to tonight. First off, we'll be talking about City Council decision here. District 6 position finally filled. This was the seat that was left vacant after former Councilman Tariq Bokhari vacated that seat to take a job within the Trump administration. We're also watching for severe weather potential in the Midwest after a pretty busy past few days, and we also have a heated discussion underway in Fort Mill as residents there continue to protest the Silfab solar project, which we've talked about is this manufacturing facility for solar materials. So we wanted to start off, though, with that city council news. And we want to bring in our Julie Kay, who has been following all of the discussions regarding this open seat. This was, once again, Tariq Bokhari's old seat. He's now with the Trump administration. And tonight we know who is filling it, Edwin Peacock III. So tell us about this meeting tonight where that was decided. It came down pretty close, it sounded like.
Yeah, it actually was a tiebreaker from the mayor that led us to Edwin Peacock. This decision is not necessarily unexpected. They said from the beginning, we want someone who has experience because we only have a few months of filling this position. We don't want to be catching someone up to speed. And we want someone who does not want to run for the position in November. He was one of only 2 people who checked those boxes. So Edwin Peacock is not necessarily a shocking choice. However, it was 5-5, a tie between him and Krista Bokhari, Tariq Bokhari's wife, of course. And it came down to Mayor Vi Lyles, who made that decision. And we do have a statement from her. I'm going to read it out. She says, "I'm grateful for all the candidates that took the time to apply and go through this process. I spoke with Mr. Peacock, and he is ready to serve District 6. We've got a lot of work to do, and I look forward to working with him in the coming months." A lot of that work, of course, is going to be the transit plan. That's something that they need to get through the legislative session, which is winding down. So we've got only a few months left of this where they want the 1-cent sales tax to get on the ballot. We need approval from the General Assembly for that. And Edwin, even in the forum last week, mentioned that as something that we need to work on. That and affordable housing seem to be his 2 big things, which of course in Charlotte, both of those are incredibly important. He served originally from 2007 to 2011. He was actually the last at-large member who was a Republican in the city of Charlotte, which is notable. He then ran again for mayor in 2013 and 2015 unsuccessfully, but that is really where a lot of this expertise comes from, this knowledge comes from, so it should be, as everyone's hoping, a pretty easy transition.
Now, I mean, you alluded to this, the fact that it did come down to Edwin Peacock and Krista Bokhari, and I mean, there's definitely an interesting dynamic with Krista Bokhari because we've been covering at length recently in past couple weeks how she has been outspoken with some matters regarding the police chief, and she said even to you that speaking out she thought would probably hurt her chances to be selected by city leaders for this position. So that is interesting to see. But you, by your understanding, think that she's probably going to run in November when the seat actually goes up for voters to decide.
And that is, I think, I mean, we knew from the beginning that Krista Bokhari was a big name being thrown out. At one point, she was the only name being thrown out before all of this blew up between Tariq Bokhari and the police chief, and then her stepping in a very lengthy Facebook post that she even prefaced with, "I know this will hurt my chances, but it's time to speak." But I do think that this opens the door for her full campaign. I think if there's anything interesting about it, it's that 5 council members did vote for her knowing that she's been outspoken about wanting the seat full time for a full term, despite them all agreeing that they didn't want someone who wanted that. Now, I think that this kind of clears that path for her in a sense, but the fact that it came down to a tiebreaker, and she did have so much support on council, even with that kind of qualifier in there, makes it is a very good sign for her coming forward. A lot of the other people who ran as well, even Andrew Dunn had said, I don't want to run for this seat in the fall, but I have supported Krista Bokhari, and I think she's a great choice. So she even has some support of her fellow candidates, which is really interesting. When I talked to her, I believe 2 weeks ago now, when this really all blew up, where there was that alleged settlement with Chief Johnny Jennings over texts that Tariq Bokhari sent that he says were very threatening and potentially defamatory. She said, of course, as you mentioned, I know this may hurt my chances, but this actually doubles down my want for this seat. So in fact, I think this increases her drive, this whole situation. So she has not made necessarily a formal, yes, I am running despite not getting the seat this time, but I do expect that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting to see too, there was a public forum last week where we saw some of these applicants speaking before, you know, their hopeful peers, their potential peers, the folks that they wanted to work alongside, and they talked about their positions on things. But we saw of the entire field, which was probably about a dozen folks, I feel like we saw maybe only 3 or 4 people actually show up to the actual forum to speak their mind to city leaders about wanting to get the job.
And it was an interesting crowd. Actually, there were, I think you're right, there were about 12 people who submitted applications. 2 of them were off the bat not qualified, so they were kind of removed from that off the ballot from either not being a Republican or not living in District 6. And then another one rescinded their application on Friday. So it came down to really 9 people. I thought it was interesting that there were only 2 people that received votes after those kind of internal discussions. Someone that we talked about a lot that ended up not being a part of that vote was Andy Doolin. He has also city council experience, just like Edwin Peacock does, which is, I know what they wanted. He also, though, has experience in the State House, which is something that they're going to need to pass that 1-cent sales tax. So they do have, of course, already close ties. City Council here in Charlotte and the State House are not separate. They're very intertwined. But I think that that's interesting that Andy was such a front runner because of his ties and his connections that could have helped push that through. Last we heard from the representatives that filed that bill, it was a 50-50 chance it gets passed. Without that, it can't end up on the ballot, and Charlotte is going to be faced with, how do we pay for this? We've already bought it. So that's going to be a really interesting piece. But yeah, it really at some point, I think, narrowed down very early on to Edwin, Krista, Andy, and Andrew.
Well, I guess to be determined how things play out from here. Of course, we'll be watching, and it sounds like you'll be sitting down with Edwin Peacock tomorrow afternoon. Is that right?
Yes, that is what we're working on now. Edwin and I just chatted. He's being informally sworn in tomorrow at 2:30, so he and I are planning to chat before that, and then he'll have more of a formal ceremony in 2 weeks.
Yeah, expected to hit the ground running because, you know, just a few months really on the job, and then
only so much time.
Then it goes up to voters. All the city positions really, I guess, at that point go up in November. So, all right, Julie, always something to talk about. We always appreciate you coming here on Live Impact News to chat.
I'll be back.
I know you will. Yeah, we're going to reel you in here every single time there's a big development. We just always want to keep folks updated with the very latest. So thank you again, Julie, for your time. We'll see you again soon. And folks at home, of course, we alluded to the fact that it's a pretty busy evening here on the stream. So we wanted to turn now to York County, where we've talked about some of the concerns that some residents are posing about Silfab Solar Facility. And there is a meeting, and as expected, we've got a lot of folks who have turned out to speak their mind on this $150 million project, set to bring 800 jobs to the area. But on the flip side, there are some folks who are raising concern about environmental impacts, the fact that this facility is going to be near 2 schools. So let's listen in on discussions there in York County tonight.
Building Maternity Community Resource Center provided.
And you say, okay, let's come up with a strategy on how we can divvy up this $1.4 million. And I think they could most definitely come up with a solution that they could bring to council that we could either agree upon or not agree upon. So I would suggest they do that. And in the meantime, we're asking them for data, and unfortunately, they don't have the data. I think it's unfortunate, too, that they're also working on their budgets, and they don't know where they stand with this allocation. I mean, they do know right now it's 5-2 that they're not going to get the allocation. They're going to get a stipend over a period of time that we're determining how much that stipend is going to be. So I suggest that we leave the 1.5 in our budget for unincorporated, which generates $1,745,000. Also pass the 1.5 million countywide tax. It's going to generate just shy of $3 million a year, because we do need that money to fund our parks now and in the future, the parks we currently have and those that we need to invest in the future. So if we did that, you got until April of 2026 for the city managers, our county manager, the Parks and Rec Department of the municipalities, and our Parks and Rec Department to meet and come up with a strategy on what they're going to suggest for our budget 2026, 2027. So I hope that all makes sense, and I apologize for taking up the time that it did, but I think it's important. Thank you.
Mr. Roddy.
I'll go next. In my 14 years sitting up here, the last 5, I think we've had this topic in front of us saying, give us one more year, we'll figure it out. Give us one more year, we'll figure it out. We didn't just rush to this decision to do away with the rec tax. We've been talking about it since the last time we heard one more year. And I'll commend every municipality in this county. They've done a great job of providing their recreation for what they do for it. What has changed since the inception of the rec tax is, number 1, we've gotten into doing parks. Number 2, it looks on the surface as if it's a money grab, because the more money we take, the more money each municipality say we need, because we're building more parks. Well, this council don't get a say into building a park over here, building a park over there, offering this program, whatever the fee is for those programs. And we heard that we don't know what the municipality is going to charge for, whether it's football, baseball, soccer, or whatever the programs are. That's not incumbent upon us. I've asked our county manager, have you talked to the different municipalities? And what I've heard him say is, yes, I've talked to them, but we don't have their fee schedule. He can't. We have the fee up for the upcoming year. Yeah, for the upcoming year. We've kicked around the idea of, is 75 enough? Is 75 too much? One thing I do know is that I will not support putting back in the budget the 1.5 for the county rec tax fund and a 1.5 county-wide tax. That truly is a double tax. We're increasing on top of what we already have. What's been proposed in the budget is that we remove the rec tax from just the county residents and impose a 1.5 countywide where everybody pays it. Not paying it twice, because if we leave the rec tax in, county residents will pay the 1.5, and then when we add back the 1.5 countywide, county residents are going to pay that 1.5 again. That's not the smart thing to do. We are creating, and we're still supporting our municipalities. We're just using a different funding mechanism of how the money goes out. I think some municipalities received upwards of $450,000 last year. The last several years they've received $375,000, $400,000. We haven't even gotten data that says, here are the numbers that have participated, whether it was football, baseball, soccer, to show what we're getting for writing a $450,000 check and turn around and walk out the door. We can't continue to do that and it go unchecked without us knowing what we're getting, what the taxpayers are getting for those checks that we're sending out. It's like pulling teeth to get the data of the participation. And when we've gotten the data, we've heard that, hey, over 50% of our participants are from the unincorporated areas. Well, we all know the population is inside the city limits. That means virtually every single kid that lives in the unincorporated area would have had to participate in order to outpace the population in the cities. We know that's not happening. So we've been struggling with getting verifiable data, and on top of that, I think it should be tied to registrations. Now, I've taken several calls over the last month or so about this. There are programs that we should be looking to obviously add a little bit more, because they are doing things above and beyond just the youth rec programs. I can see that. But don't just say the solution to all this would be just give us the same amount of money you've been giving us and then turn around and add another tax for what you need. We're trying to be respectful of obviously the services that they're providing by coming up with the stipend. And I think county management is prepared to deal with how those funds go out. No one's going to walk in the county and say, hey, I need that $75 check to take over to my municipality. There's a better way, there's a streamlined, better way to do it than doing it that way. But I think the reluctancy, and I'll go back to what Councilman Huckabee mentioned, but even about Cherry Park, when Cherry Park was about to come online, there was some hesitation about, is this the right thing to do? It worked out beautifully. There's some hesitation from some people as to what we're doing. Is it the right thing to do? And I feel it's going to work out beautifully. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. We were looking to change how we funded our CVB. People were reluctant, didn't want to do it. It turned out beautiful. We just had a brick presentation upstairs how vibrant these things are happening in our community, but we made a tweak to it. We made a change. And I've said on this council for the last 14 years, if we make a decision that's not turned out the way we're supposed to be, we can always come back and redo it, retweak it. We're not locked into a 100-year anything. So give this a chance to see if this is going to work the way it needs to work. But I'll tell you, we do need revenues and funding to fund our parks. There's no way we can turn over the 1.5 mills to the municipalities and think there's going to be enough left for us to fund our staffs, our maintenance, to pay for our parks. We need some of those funds too. And we're putting some first-class parks on the ground that every citizen in this county can walk up to, whether it's a $2 fee or $3 fee or a $1 fee or no fee. So the emails that have gone out saying the county's now getting ready to tax you on facilities and parks you'll never use, that's not true. We have tons of people visiting our parks, and they're not limited to county residents. They're open to everybody in this county. And we even have people coming from out of state to visit these parks. So we know we have first-class facilities. Everybody may not have a boat to go get in Lake Wiley, but you can go out to the park area. So we're doing things with your tax dollars, and I think we are in the right vein when we're saying to everybody, we want some accountability with the checks we're cutting and giving to these municipalities. And if that is so wrong, I'll be in that wrong line, because we ought to be able to say X number of county residents participated in these programs for this $400,000 check, for this $300,000 check. If that is so wrong, I'm in the wrong profession, because I would not sit up here and continue to turn a blind eye and not get what we need from a data standpoint and not create a funding source that we need to fund our parks. Now, I know there's been some conversation about the tax increase, and I'll tell you, I'm a city resident. I will pay that same $24 if my house is valued at $400,000, which is not. But it's only $6 per $100,000 that we're looking to ask everybody to pay. If you have a $200,000 house, you're going to see a $12 increase on your taxes. $300,000, $18. That is very minuscule in the eyes of what it costs for Catawba River Bend, Lake Wiley, parks over in Clover Lake Wiley, Worth Mountain, Nanny's Mountain, all these parks that we have, and we're asking our county residents and city residents throughout the county for $6 per 100,000. If that's going to break your household, your household's probably already broken. Let's just be honest with it. I would love for a component to address the extracurricular activities that don't include sports. We've heard from people who, whether it's disabilities, whether it's seniors, whether it's active adults, we can work those in there, but it has to be done through county management. Don't pick off county council members to try to work this. Work through our management staff. We pay them 5 days a week. I'm not going to name their salary, but they make a good salary to do this. And we just show up on Monday night, whether we give it the blessing or turn it down. Don't put that on county council members to develop this. County manager's been here. He's been working diligently. He has a comparable staff. We have a good attorney.
Many of whom came through the York County school systems.
Me up about not supporting something that supports seniors, middle age. Let's go through our county management. Don't put this on each council member to come up with which.
All right, folks, we're going to pivot here from this York County meeting where we talked about how they've been going back and forth with items on their agenda, but also discussions about Silfab Solar. And so, of course, we were just hearing from Council Member William Bump Roddy. It looked like he was most recently referencing parks. So we wanted to turn now to this. Essentially, it's an availability for residents to speak to and about the Silfab Solar situation. And so just keep in mind, of course, that this is an availability where folks can kind of just pop in and ask questions and hear from SilFab as well as other folks about the project itself. So we want to listen in, and as we are able to bring you back to York County, if we start to see that topic pop back up, we'll bring you there.
Issues that have been raised. One, the aspect of the of the study that was done by USC, and there's also been a reaction to that that you folks have responded to regarding the council members that are questioning whether the county can or can't at this point revoke permits for SilFab at this point. And so it's been certainly on both those. It was great to get the SilFab perspective on all that. So that's greatly appreciated. I did want to see, and I know you folks may have monitored the meeting, the 6 o'clock meeting. I don't know if there was anything new there that was said during the public comments that we wanted to respond to. So I wanted to start with that to see if there's anything that you heard. There were maybe about 9 or 10 residents that spoke at it. And I myself, I watched it on YouTube. I assume you guys may have as well. But I guess first question is, was there anything that you heard tonight that you wanted to address, either Greg or Brandon?
The only thing I heard that was new is that they made reference to a phase 2 report out of the University of South Carolina. And I mean, I can tell you that after the phase 1 report, we shared our concerns. We recognized issues that were incomplete and inaccurate. Since then, we've reached out to University of South Carolina and offered to collaborate, and we don't have positive feedback on that. I guess now there is a phase 2. We're anxious to look at it, but I mean, all I can think is it was funded by the same activist group as the first one, and which could indicate a level of bias since it was funded. But we're anxious to look at that report.
Yeah. The only other question that I have at this point is, it's kind of a broad statement. Certainly, the folks that have been speaking out at meetings have been concerned about the safety of neighbors, schools, residents, people, passing through Fort Mill that will have proximity to the plant. And one thing that's never really talked about is certainly there's got to be I'm going with benefit of the doubt. SilFab certainly interested in the safety of the plant, but for all these safety concerns, no one ever actually talks about the safety for the employees there at SilFab, which I want to give benefit of the doubt to you folks want as safe a facility as possible for for your own well-being, for the well-being of the the hundreds of employees. So I just wanted to, if you guys could speak with that. I mean, how important is safety as far as making sure you folks are taken care of and the people that you hire?
Great question. I mean, without a doubt, I mean, safety is the most important thing. It's our most important KPI as a company. One of the things we have shared in the past is all of our processes are safe. We have many redundant controls in everything that we do here. I mean, our goal is to take care of our employees, and we have all the processes and controls to do that. And quite honestly, if we take care of our people, I think the community, that they get that for free. Because again, my goal is to make sure everyone's safe. I mean, I can add that, I mean, I relocated within the last year to the York County area. Again, we've hired a bunch of people from the community that work here, and we're going to be hiring upwards close to, in total, we'll have about 800 people. And most of those 800 will live close by. So, I mean, I sure wouldn't have moved here. I sure wouldn't be trying to attract people to come work here in this facility if there was any reason to think that it was unsafe.
Jonathan Lowe. We cannot hear you. We can see you. You are trying to talk. Okay. All right. We'll go to Anders.
All right, we want to break in really quickly here with an update that we just got on a fire from this morning in the Harrisburg area. This is some video that we got from that scene. Really large plume of smoke, obviously really large flames as we could see. And this was in the Farmington community over by 485 and Rocky River Road. Just getting a look at an email that was just sent out to residents of a nearby apartment complex. And we are starting to see a bit more about the situation, what transpired. So the email references the fact that there was a daycare that was being built in that area. It was going to be called the Everbrook Academy, and this is what caught fire. That school was set to open later this year. Obviously, large loss and much damage to it at this point. Some good news is, at least for this nearby residence, which is called the Stead at Farmington, there weren't any injuries to residents. It sounds like most of the community is okay. There were some reports of glass that cracked in some of the buildings, just because, as you could see, so much flame and it was so close to a community. Apparently the heat damage, the heat from the fire really just across the street caused some glass to crack in some buildings. And so it looks like that's going to be repaired. Even folks being warned that patio railings might remain hot following the fire. So some good news in the sense that we didn't hear about any injuries, but sadly, obviously some big destruction for the school in question, and there was some damage to nearby apartments. So we wanted to make sure that you had that information. Once again, this was the Harrisburg fire that we had for you this morning here on Live Impact News over by 45 and Rocky River Road. As we get more information from authorities, we certainly will pass that along as well. With that, we'll send you back to this discussion of Silfab Solar. This is the availability that they are holding for the public to ask questions about this project, which we've been seeing has met with some resistance from the community.
It's what we're already doing. I mean, we're following all the requirements and regulations from DES, from the county, from the EPA. Those requirements are built into all of our processes. They're built into our reporting. I think that's the best way to answer that question. Is the processes are safe, processes are controlled, and if I'm a parent, I'd hope I'd listen to that with an open mind. And like I said earlier, I mean, there's a level of appreciation in the technology and the controls that we have that's missing.
Thank you.
WSOC's question is, what is your response, Silfab's response to the calls for a cease and desist or revoking Silfab's permit?
Yeah, I'll step in here, Donata. So a cease and desist order is not something that exists under the zoning code, and the repeated calls for this type of measure really just create confusion and possibly give false hope. The simple fact is County Council does not have authority to issue a cease and desist order. Only the zoning administrator can in certain situations when there is a violation of the zoning code, an uncured violation. And here we have no violations and we have no notice of such. So these calls are improper. If there was any type of legal remedy available to stop construction, to prevent the operations from going forward, it would be for the county or whoever to go to court and seek an injunction. And that is exactly what the opposition group, KG, has already tried, and that effort failed. So we believe that the calls for a cease and desist order have no merit at all, and really they shouldn't be made because it's quite irresponsible.
So the follow-up question to this, Brandon, is that the group is alleging errors in the permit approval. They said the law allows the zoning administrator to revoke.
If there were errors in the permit approval, that may be an option. but that is up to the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator has provided no notice of zoning violations. In fact, what the county has said is that solar panel and cell manufacturing is a permitted use prior to the BZA meeting. And so that is what we have relied on. There's no violation. There are no errors. I know others have a different opinion, but the courts will sort all that out. And right now, we've been prevailing in court, and we expect to continue to do so if we have to fight it in that venue.
Anders, I'll try to see if you need to come off mute to ask your question. All right, WCCB. Okay, anyone else have any other questions? Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, folks, Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. This Silfab Solar availability, answering questions about a controversial project for the York County area starting to wrap up there. And we want to send you now back to the York County Council meeting where we mentioned Silfab Solar is coming up as a topic of discussion. We've been hearing folks saying that they're planning to come and speak at this meeting regarding this. And just keep in mind, as we send you back to this meeting, we've been hearing them kind of dip in and out of that topic. So they've been touching on other items as well. So let's listen in live. You're watching Live Impact News.
They'll never convince me that us that live out in the country do not pay our fair share into the municipalities, because how do you conclude where any of us that live out in the country come and do our bidding? Everything we buy, we come to town to buy. So we do pay into the municipalities to start with. And you know, I'm not for any tax increases, but if we are going to have a tax increase, it looks like it would be on more important things than just playing and entertainment. We all sit up here and told you we ain't got enough to fix roads and stuff and all now. But I've made that speech the other week about how all the important things don't get never talked about, but we sit here and it becomes playing and entertainment, and it's the end of the sky's falling. And it just amazes me. And I ought to tread lightly what I'm fixing to say here, since everybody worries about losing their Happy Meals and everything else. But I got 7 young'uns, and raised every one of them farming and working on equipment. And I ain't asked nobody to buy nothing for them. A lot of people have been generous and brought them stuff, and we thank them, because you never take a blessing. But if God gives you a child, it's your responsibility. And I think a lot of parents nowadays also, and I think it's wonderful that a child be able to play. Now, in my time growing up, we knew the difference between time to play and time to work. But, you know, as many times as there's a yes, there's a no. And some of the emails and all that I got, and if $30 difference, either way this thing could go or whatnot, breaks you to whether or not your child plays. And if even the factor, and even Andy wrote some numbers down that I thought was good when we sat there and was ciphering it out. Something ain't adding up, ain't telling the truth on this thing. I can't go for it. Now,
if it don't work out that way, and think about the number of people that's going to get taxed that don't even have no kids involved in all of this. I mean, Lord, I hear it enough just over the schools. I mean, you know, I think the whole thing's done got so far out of hand that it's actually kind of ridiculous. That's about all I got to say.
I'm going to try not to rehash the points, but I guess we do have two things on the agenda, so I might as well speak about these now. I want to say this first and foremost. We are so blessed to live in York County. We have 9 municipalities, 9. Some folks don't realize we have 9 municipalities in our county, and our community is so blessed with having a variety of options available to all of our people to do recreation. I do not support this amendment, and I'm probably going to be a broken record tonight. I'm not going to support adding any new taxes or any new fees. In fact, I'm going to make motions that may or may not pass that cut the budget. But with respect to this issue, I think one tax is better than 2 taxes. And I think that this is going to prove to provide greater accountability and fairness throughout the process. I think that the one thing that I just have to get off my chest, it's come to my attention that some municipalities sent letters and emails to county residents asserting that the county and the council was planning not to provide any programming at all funding for that. That's absolutely false. That's not true. And public record, if you go back and take a look at what council has talked about, we have made clear that that's not what we're doing here either. That concerns me, and I think that causes problems with trying to work through things, but I'm committed to continuing to have that discussion. And again, those comments were made before any of those letters were sent. I do think, as someone whose responsibility is to be a steward of the taxpayer dollar, it is not unreasonable to ask, where has that funding been going? And if you don't know where it's been going and can't tell us where it's been going, that's further indicia of the problem. And I think what the management has proposed in terms of doing a countywide evaluate the number for the programming fee, and let's verify the numbers through the program users. Clearly, there's information out there because letters were sent out to people who use these facilities. Some folks don't even realize what we're talking about. I'm getting emails from lots of different people with lots of different ideas. You got 7 people, seven different opinions, 7 different ideas, 7 different ways to figure this out. I agree that you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so I support what management has put in the budget on this one. Some folks don't realize that for nearly 20 years, the only people that have paid this tax are folks who live in the unincorporated areas. And all that funding was given to municipalities. At that point in time, the cities were largely the only ones providing that program. A lot of things have changed. There are private programming efforts. Other cities have started.
All right, folks, we'll continue to listen in on this York County Council meeting, and we'll keep you updated. We'll bring you back here as soon as anything else develops. Meantime, here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we just noticed a brand new feed that's come into our newsroom here. And right now, we are actually seeing President Trump addressing a Kennedy Center board dinner in the state dining room. This is happening at the White House. Of note, you'll remember the president actually fired its previous members back in February, announced that he'd be serving as the board's chair, and then was, after which, elected unanimously as the board chair. So let's listen in now as the president makes some remarks.
That will attract large audiences once again and launched a plan to renovate the building and reclaim the grandeur as a landmark, really a Washington landmark, which it always was. The Kennedy Center will also play an important role in our national celebration to commemorate the 250th anniversary of America's founding. So we have three really big. We have that. We have the 250th anniversary of America's founding. That's a big deal. And we have the Olympics, and we have the World Cup. And, you know, maybe I got lucky because I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. I did nothing to help the 250th anniversary because if I take credit for that one, then you'll say, I think he's exaggerating a little. But two of the three, I got the Olympics, I got the World Cup. And I said to myself when I got them, it was my first term I got them, President Obama would not take the calls from the Olympic Committee, refused to take the calls. And I think because he traveled to Oslo or wherever he went, and very far away, in order to get the Olympics, previous Olympics. And I said, well, that's great. That means we got it, because what president would travel to come in fourth place, which is what we came in, fourth place. And so he was so angry he wouldn't take the call. So I got a call from, at the time, the mayor of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is not looking too good with what the water. We just sent so much water down their way, they didn't want to take it because it was bad for the environment. I said, no, water's good for the environment. They would have had it, when I told them to get it, they wouldn't have had the fires, or it would have been very small. But we took so much, and we were looking at the Olympics, we were looking at other things, and Obama went there, and all that travel, all that everything, and think, who would go there unless you know the answer? You have to know the answer. You can't be embarrassed as president. No president's ever done that. And I give him credit, he went, but he should have known the answer. Let's go deal making. And he didn't, and they put him at fourth, and he was so angry that it hurt his whole thing. He didn't want to talk to anybody. So I got a call from the mayor, and he said, sir, you're the president-elect. I was president-elect at the time. The president will not speak to the Olympic Committee, and I understand that, but a little bit his fault, I guess. He was very embarrassed by that. And I said, I'll speak to him. And I spoke to this gentleman who was obviously Scandinavian, seriously Scandinavian, and very nice. I couldn't get him off the phone because he was so starved for love. He just kept, I must have had him for 2 hours. I couldn't. I said, sir, I have to go. I'm president-elect. Yes. All I said to him, yes, 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 we will take good care. They wanted to know that if they choose us for the Olympics, will we treat them nicely? And I said, we're going to treat you like so well, like you've never been treated. And then he wanted to talk about anything because nobody would talk to him. Now he talks to me. And we got the Olympics, and then we got through Johnny, who's the boss. He's a friend of mine. We got the World Cup. I got them both. And I said, man, I won't be president. I got the Olympics and the World Cup, and I won't be president. And they're going to forget that I got them. Nobody's going to mention it because, you know, a little bit, that's the way life is. And then they rigged the election. And then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll run again, and I'll shove it up their ass. And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, I then realized, I said, you know what? I got the Olympics, I got the World Cup, and I got the 250th. Look at the way this works out. So if they would have left us alone and wouldn't have cheated on the election and wouldn't have rigged it, I would have been retired right now. I would have been happily doing something else. And instead, they have me for 4 more years. Can you believe it? Yeah. So it has to. So instead of putting forward programming that tears our country down and tears our country apart, the Kennedy Center should be the nation's premier venue for lifting up the best of our country and lifting up the American arts, theater, music, and culture. And together, it's really an honor to be with. I mean, I have so many friends on the board. This is a hot board, just like we have a hot country. You know, we have a hot country. Our country was stone cold 8 months ago. It all began on November 5th. Does anybody know that that was election day? And from that moment on, and then January 20th came, and what we've done, we have almost no inflation. Our energy prices are way down. Our gasoline costs are way down. Groceries are way down. Eggs. Remember, they hit me with eggs my first week. Sir, the fake news, those people right there, they're saying, sir, eggs have gone through the roof. they were doubling and tripling eggs. I said, I don't know, I've just got here, excuse me. And through our she's done a great job, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture. Anyway, the prices came down. They didn't want us to, we had the egg roll here a couple of weeks ago for Easter. They didn't want us to order eggs. They wanted the eggs to be made out of plastic. They wanted plastic. I said, I'm not going to do that. But by the time it came around, the egg prices are way down. The groceries are way down. Everything is way down. We are just doing great. I mean, think of it, no inflation. And we're taking in billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, which we never did before. We got a hot country right now. We have a country that people are proud to be a part of. So we're going to honor the legacy of President Kennedy's great legacy, and we'll create the best and most beautiful home for the performing arts anywhere in the country, and many other things also. I want to thank you again. We're going to have some fun working together. We're going to make this a fun project. That's what I thought until I walked into the building. I said, this won't be the fun I thought, but it is fun. I like to create. You like to create. Most of the people in the room like to create, just like Bob Kraft created the New England Patriots. He happens to be here. And he tells me he has a great new quarterback, so we're going to see. You know, a lot of people make that statement. We're going to find out, but I have a feeling you're going to be right. You've been right about a lot of things, but he was right about Tom Brady, right? He got him almost the last draft choice in the last round, sixth round, whatever it was. How did he work out, Tom Brady? Okay? Not bad? Good, right? But Bob's here, and his wife, as you know, Dana, she's on the board. And she's much younger than him, so he wanted to come tonight with her. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice when you have a husband that will travel with you to the board, and he's a big shot, too. And he's a great guy. He's been my friend for a long time. So I'd like to ask, if I might, Secretary Rubio, and followed by, we're going to ask Sergio to say a couple of words, and then Rick Grinnell, and we'll have a little fun tonight. And you know what they can do? If they can, relatively quietly, they can start serving the meal. So by the time we're all finished, we get the hell out of here, we go home, and we have our board all formed, and we can start doing that quietly. And so Marco, please come up and say a few words. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. It's an unusual day. You know, it's not often you wake up in the morning and your first meeting is with the Pope and your last meeting is a dinner with the President of the United States. That's a heck of a day. And but it actually is an honor to be a part of this administration, Mr. President. It's actually a very unique situation. I don't know how many of you got to see the President's speech in Saudi Arabia. I think it will go down as one of the most profound foreign policy speeches in American history. And where it outlined a vision for the future and a vision of prosperity. And I tell people, we have a president of peace. In fact, I'll tell you kind of an aside, one of the cardinals I was meeting with, Mr. President, the day before the papal mass said to me, you know, it's very unusual for us. It's, you know, we have an American president that wants peace, and it's some of the Europeans that are constantly talking about doing war stuff. So it's kind of the world's upside down in their mind right now. It's usually the other way around. And it's a great honor to work for a president who literally spends half his day, maybe more, trying to stop wars, end wars, prevent wars. And it's an extraordinary thing to be a part of, and thank you for your leadership on that front. He's a key part of the speech he gave, and I just summarize it this way: our president is a builder, not a bomber. He wants to make things, he wants to build things, he wants people to have prosperity and to be happy. And frankly, he knows we have to have national defense because, of course, that's the world we live in. But I think one of the things that troubles him deeply is how much money has to be spent on some of this military and war, because it's just the way the nature of the world is. He'd much rather it be spending growing the economy and doing the deals that we've seen, and he's trying to convince other countries of that as well. It's an honor to be a part of this tonight for a few moments because you have an opportunity here. You know, the Kennedy Center is a showcase of American excellence in arts and culture, and that's what it needs to be again. And the work that Rick and his team are doing, both to bring the building and the actual function of the organization to reflect that, but the programming is the other thing. We're really excited to see the programming, the shows that are coming, that will be a highlight of American excellence and of American culture and American entertainment. And just so you know the influence that American culture has around the world in a positive way, a few months ago, the President hosted the Prime Minister of Italy down in Florida, and her English is excellent, very good English. And I asked her, why is your English so good? How it was really good. You know what she said? You know where she learned English? Michael Jackson. Not from him, not like personally, he wasn't doing the lessons, from his music. But what it tells you is the impact that American culture has on the world in such a positive way, and it can have such an influence. And the Kennedy Center is a showcase for it. So we're excited to see what you're leading here, and all of you contributing towards that. And we're excited to see also the restoration of that building. That really should be a showcase and something that we're proud of. That when people come to Washington, when people come to America, they want to see the shows that reflect the greatness of our culture and society, and in a building run by an organization that is reflective of excellence as well. So it's an honor to be here tonight. I want to thank all of you for contributing to this, because it's important that this board and everyone that's involved in it, and Rick and his team, are doing a great job of making sure that your dollars and everything you've made possible will be well spent, so we'll have a treasure in our hands for future generations. I think, Sergio, you want to come up here now and tell us about Sergio Gore, personnel.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here with all of you. We're here to honor the spirit that makes America exceptional. Under President Trump's leadership, we're witnessing the revitalization of American culture, a return to the values that fuel our greatness. I can't think of a better chairman of the Kennedy Center than President Trump. And a lot of you know his incredible record when it comes to dealing with these individuals who become American icons. So from Michael Jackson to hosting Pavarotti many times, to Andrea Bocelli, to incredible individuals that have changed the landscape of art and music. A couple of years ago, we were publishing a book, and it was called Letters to Trump. And we would open a box that's been closed for decades. And the letters that would show up in these boxes were just absolutely incredible. And there was a letter from 1986, and it was written to, Dear Donald, I have a new show opening up. And I'd love for you to attend. It's called Phantom of the Opera. Signed, Andrew Lloyd Webber. And so there's nobody more qualified to lead this institution than President Donald Trump. America's had an incredible run for the last 250 years, minus the last 4 under the previous administration. And so we hope under his leadership, under his vision, under this entire team, the next 250 will be just as great. I want to thank all the individuals who have contributed to the Kennedy Center. Howard Lutnick, 7-figure donation, thank you. And we have a lot of other individuals who are looking to contribute. Anthony, you're nothing but cash, we know that. With that, I want to bring up our incredible director who's leading up the day-to-day activities of the Kennedy Center, Ambassador Rick Grenell.
I'll be very quick. First of all, how great is it to have a president who actually cares about the Art Center? That's what I love best, is that he actually cares. He came, he saw the problem, and he immediately said, I'm going to call Congress and we're going to try to fix it. This is traditionally a Democrat territory, except President Trump says, I want to do this. I have to tell you, President Trump is actually saving the Kennedy Center, because there is discussion right now of whether or not to take it down. The deferred maintenance of the Kennedy Center is criminal. It has been terrible. Mr. President, we said today in our board meeting, our great new CFO went through the 24 and 25 budgets of the Kennedy Center and found $26 million in phantom revenue, fake revenue. It's criminal. We're going to refer this to the U.S. Attorney's Office here. We're lucky enough to have the Attorney General on the board of the Kennedy Center who heard all the details today. She heard the details. And this is unacceptable in America, to have a fake revenue of $26 million fraud on previous donors. It's unacceptable. But I'm here to tell you that what we have is total transparency now. We want people to go through the budget. We want them to question it. We announced our program today, which is literally shocking the media because they're saying, okay, this is pretty good. We're not getting criticized for the programming because guess what, Mr. President? When you pick programs that are popular with the public, they respond. People buy tickets. It is popular when you do programming for the masses. As I said today, I am somebody who loves niche programming in the arts. I am somebody who embraces it. It's not for everybody, but I like to be challenged by the arts. I like it when somebody can teach me and make me a little bit uncomfortable in a show. But one thing that we're not going to do at the Kennedy Center is inappropriate content for children. We're going to protect children, and we're going to make sure that we are absolutely not losing money on our program. We can't do arts education if we don't have enough money and we have fake revenue coming in. So I promise you, and this board today responded incredibly well. I can't thank you all enough. Jennifer, thank you for being the chair. Thank you for every single board member. Your commitment is amazing. And as President Trump said, we're going to do great things. Everyone needs to go out and buy tickets to Les Mis and Porgy and Bess, which are currently being right now about to launch. We're building the stages and we're getting ready to have premier entertainment at America's premier arts institution. Thank you very much.
Remarks wrapping up there at the Kennedy Center board dinner. Of course, we can see with these live images here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, the president among those. We did hear him speak several moments ago. We mentioned as well the president had fired the full board, the previous board. It's now stocked with folks who are Trump loyalists, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, Second Lady Usha Vance, Lee Greenwood, and we're seeing essentially this new era ushered in for arts for the center after the president complained about the programming. He called it too leftist and too politically correct. So you can hear some of those remarks kind of reflecting that change. Let's listen in now to York County Council that is still underway. And as we mentioned, they've been speaking about Silfab Solar, some of the controversy there, among other items.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So I would just clarify that.
Go ahead.
I think just for the county attorney and the manager's office, if you could clarify the motion to include the adjustment of the millage.
Okay. So a whole new motion or amend it?
Let's read it again.
I think you're saying to clarify that you're, because you're going to create one fund out of balance and
All
that
right.
will be remedied by millage.
Then I would like to clarify that the reallocation would be from the Field Day Park H-tax allocation and would include a millage of the Lake Wiley Recreation tax millage rate.
Second. Will you explain what you shared with us as to why you're asking for this?
So the reason I'm asking for this is that, Nanny's Mountain was bought in 1997 by the county, or gotten as a park in 1997. In 2021, there were county staff, there was a little bit of stuff before it, but in 2021, county staff and some of the departments put together a master plan for this facility. And it's a mountain over in the Lake Wiley Clover area. You say Clover. For my Clover people, it's kind of Clover, but it's Lake Wiley. It's over on Highway 274. And, it's just a nice little natural area. And so the county staff put together a nice master plan for it. In 2022, at the very beginning of 2022, in one of the meetings, it got deferred. Or in 2021, it got deferred. In 2022, it got deferred out of a committee by a council member because there were better things coming for it. And since then, it's just really sat there and festered around. It's a very small project that would get a lot of benefit if we could just finish up this master plan. Staff really put a lot of their heart into this. They took ownership of this project when they did this master plan, and they have expressed the disappointment they had that this plan was just kicked off out of the queue of projects and never brought back. And so this would really help to boost their morale, showing that we care about what they're doing, and we would also get a project actually completed. It's not, there's no sense in just, it's such a minuscule or small amount of work and such small funds that we could just get it completed, and then we don't have to.
And we shall continue to listen in the background to York County Council here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. Meantime, we want to talk about severe weather, because we know this has been a big thing for particularly the Midwest in the recent days. In St. Louis, if you were watching here Friday night, this was devastating what they had to deal with. At least 2 tornadoes, loss of life, big devastation, damage to multiple neighborhoods across the area. So tonight we wanted to bring you an update that we just got from St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer, who just a few moments ago talked about some of the recovery efforts that are underway, cleanup, et cetera. And just keep in mind as well, we actually do continue to watch the potential for more severe weather impacts today for that region. Some tornado threats for Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. So as we send you over now to Mayor Spencer, keep in mind we'll break in as anything big and breaking does happen.
Are you ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here tonight to address the concerns that myself and St. Louisans, people across the region have about the tornado sirens on Friday. Let me first and foremost say that these concerns are valid, they're real, and I share them. Let me share what happened. The tornado warning was issued on 2:34 p.m. on Friday. Within minutes, a massive weather system had hit the ground and was decimating our neighborhoods. In those minutes between the warning and the time that we were experiencing a massive weather event, there was a failure, a human failure, a failure in protocol to get the sirens up and running, to let the community know that there was a massive weather event hitting our community. There was a failure of protocol. It was a human failure. This protocol was put in place in 2021. It was not exceptionally clear about whose roles and responsibilities it was to do what. It is now my responsibility and my role to ensure that moving forward, this protocol is crystal clear, and it is. This protocol is calling for our fire department, who is staffed 24 hours a day, to issue those warnings. And from this point forward, the fire department, with whom I have the utmost confidence, is going to be doing that work moving forward. But at the end of the day, this was a human failure. We know that our emergency management system also issued 317 direct messages to the community to let them know. Our sirens are designed to let people know who are outside to take shelter. But at the end of the day, this was a failure. Again, I'm taking full responsibility to make sure that moving forward, the protocol that is in place from this point forward is absolutely crystal clear, and our fire department will be moving forward with the role of making sure that that is deployed from this point forward.
Mayor, did any sirens go off?
We're still under evaluation. What I can tell you is that the sirens were not deployed in a way that they should be. They should have been.
So some went off, some didn't?
It's not exactly clear, okay, Mark, but I will tell you that there was a failure.
Is that mean someone just didn't push a button? Can you elaborate?
I believe that's exactly what happened, Mark. A button wasn't pushed, and the sirens were not deployed.
And whose
okay?
responsibility is it?
Again, the protocols were not crystal clear, and that is where the problem was. The problem was in the protocols. We are fixing that problem, and the protocols are crystal clear from this point forward. The fire department will be doing that. I have full confidence that our fire department and our chief is going to be able to do that moving forward.
Will you release the text of what protocols were in place at that time?
I don't see why we couldn't do that. I don't have the answer to that for you right now, Sean, but I don't see why not.
Just a bit confuser. Okay, you're saying it was unclear whether the fire department or EMS was, I don't mean EMS, emergency
Under
management.
which circumstances, yes, it was not crystal clear. We've made that crystal clear moving forward.
Who is supposed to take that responsibility? Like who specifically?
Look, the buck stops with me moving forward. Okay, from this point forward, the buck stops with me. The protocol is crystal clear. Again, this was based on protocol that was put in place in 2021, which was not clear. We're making it clear from this point forward.
Do we know if any sirens went off?
Mark, I can't answer that right now. I don't want to be wrong. It's possible that someone off. At the end of the day, I'm calling this a failure.
How
okay?
many sirens do we have in the city? Roughly?
I don't have the answer to that. We'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I want to ask about the National Guard. Governor
Yes.
Kehoe has said that there are no appropriate missions right now for the National Guard, but they're going to evaluate missions in the near future.
Yes.
From the mayor's standpoint, do you want the National Guard here?
Look, in order for the National Guard to be deployed here, it has to be a very specific ask. In order to make that specific ask, we had to do a full evaluation, an assessment of the needs. We are completing that as we speak. We had to get all sorts of information about what the needs really are. As we complete that, those direct and specific asks will be made, and they will be forthcoming, and we'll share them with you all as soon as we can. We are really waiting on FEMA, okay? And I have full confidence. I know our governor has been right by our side, has made that ask of our president, and we are hoping and praying, okay, that that is made, that declaration is made.
Just to clarify, are you considering asking for the National Guard?
We are making that consideration, absolutely. It has to be. We are considering it, absolutely. Look, it has to be a very specific ask. You have to outline exactly what we are outlining the needs and what and how we can deploy them.
Considering that there were fatalities here, I think it's fair to expect some families to be pretty upset that there wasn't a siren. Are there people in your administration being held accountable?
We are taking the appropriate steps at this point, Mark. Right now, our priority is ensuring that moving forward, the protocol under this leadership is crystal clear, and it is crystal clear as of this point forward. And I understand that our families are very hurt. They should be. We've lost lives, we've lost houses, we've had so many people injured. I absolutely hear you, and I can tell you that moving forward, we are all going to be we are accountable.
At this point, has anyone been disciplined?
We are still evaluating that, Mark.
What was the commissioner's direct responsibility during that time?
Look, let me just tell you, the protocol was not crystal clear, okay? The protocol needed to be crystal clear. It wasn't. It's clear as of right now. It is clear moving forward.
Two more questions. Can you elaborate on how it wasn't clear? Did it not name any organization that was supposed to, or did it name multiple organizations that were supposed to?
Under certain circumstances, it was. My point is, it wasn't crystal clear. Okay, we'll share with you what we can. I promise.
We're hearing a lot from residents about when trash pickup, if dumpsters are going to be put in neighborhoods, or if trucks are going to come along. Do we have any details on that yet?
Oh, that is going to be forthcoming. We hear that. We know that garbage is a consideration. That's why we've worked to make sure that our streets are cleared, and we're working on alleys now to make sure that we can get those dumpsters replaced. Our dumpsters are being deployed right now for tree removal, but we absolutely hear and see the need for other refuse removal. We are working on not just getting those dumpsters in place, but having dump sites so that we can start to accumulate the waste as we line up what and where in dumps in landfills that'll end up. Yeah. Thank you all.
I just, real briefly, we want to share that the curfew remains in effect tonight at 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in police districts 5 and 6. That is going to continue until further notice. The mayor's office is evaluating that along with police and fire officials each day. We also want to remind folks that we have more strong to severe thunderstorms coming in tonight. Please make sure that you have multiple ways to receive severe weather alerts on your phone or through Notify STL. If you are in the impacted tornado area, you should make sure that you have alternative methods of seeking shelter. We do not know the stability of some of those standing structures that were in the tornado affected area. So make sure that you follow both the police department, fire department, and the city of St. Louis's social media accounts for further updates, okay?
Has the curfew been in effect every night, I presume?
Yes. The curfew's been in effect since the tornado.
Has there been any looting at all?
We have had some very limited reports to looting, but we can't confirm that looting took place. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate your time.
Anybody arrested for violating the curfew? Seriously?
No.
I hadn't heard there was, but thank you.
All right, so more cleanup to come, and it sounds like more investigation to come in the St. Louis area following severe weather impacts and impacts from tornadoes. You heard them talking about some residents being concerned that they didn't hear those tornado sirens, even though they knew that through other methods that there was a tornado in the area. So we'll keep you updated, and of course, bottom right corner of your screen, we still have our live drive that we're tracking out of Kansas, as folks in the entire region really are remaining weather aware for more potential impacts after a pretty busy past few days. All right, with that, we want to turn to a big development on the legislative front federally for the nation. The president today, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, signing what's called the Take It Down Act. And this is legislation that is taking aim at deepfake pornography, as well as, I guess, revenge porn is what we've heard it called in some cases. But this is a measure that overwhelmingly passed Congress. It was unanimous consent in Senate and 409 to 2 vote in the House. And so, well, looks like we're actually going to take a quick pivot, folks. Before we get to that, we've got a brand new feed coming in here to the Live Impact News studio. So we want to turn to Wisconsin, where it looks like we are now getting an update finally on a lockdown that happened at University of Wisconsin Platteville. Folks were being told to shelter in place. There really wasn't a lot of information given out at the time about what was transpiring, but it looks like police are now prepared to share that update. What we can tell you is whatever happened has prompted finals to be canceled, both today and tomorrow. And there's going to be counseling available for students on campus. Police are speaking now, so let's listen in here. This is University of Wisconsin Platteville.
It was determined relatively soon that it was not an active, ongoing threat. Emergency personnel responded immediately. We activated our safety protocol, and we alerted campus to shelter in place. We were assisted by Platteville City Police Department, Grant County Sheriff's Department, and Grant County Emergency Management. First and foremost, I'd like to point out that our concern is for our students and their safety. The shelter in place was cleared just after 5 o'clock when we confirmed that this was an isolated incident. I have to point out that this is an ongoing, active law enforcement investigation, and I really don't have a lot of specific details at this time, as it's still very fluid. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chancellor Vitovich, who's going to also offer a brief statement. After we're done with the statements, we can then open it up for questions.
Hello, my name is Tammy Vitovich, Evetovich. I'm the Chancellor of UW-Platteville. I just want to say our biggest concern at this point, first and foremost, is the safety and well-being of our students. There are so many people on campus right now who are doing everything they can to do just that. We are focused on you. We understand that you have a lot of questions, and we will answer what we can. But right now, what we have to focus on are those students who are impacted and support them in ways that only the people on this campus can do. And with that, I'll turn it over to the provost to talk a bit more.
Thank you, Chancellor. My name is Dr. Laura Reynolds, Reynolds, and I'm the Provost and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. So as the campus community received an email a few minutes ago that we have canceled final exams for the remainder of the week. We've canceled these final exams because, and this extends to both the Platteville and the Baraboo campus, because we are a close-knit community. Both the faculty and staff, as well as the students, need time to be together, need time to work through this together. We are deeply saddened and know this event has negative impact on our pioneers, and we know students will want to be able to focus on their own well-being and spend time with friends and families. I know you have questions about your courses ending, and we will manage that through the Office of the Dean of your college. That is not our priority right now. Our priority is your wellness and your well-being. Thank you.
Questions?
I understand that you can't give details about names and that sort of thing, but what exactly took place? What is it that you're investigating?
Well, it's just a difficult situation right now that we're investigating an incident that occurred within the Wilgus. And we're really not at liberty to go into all the details of that because it's an active, fluid investigation. We brought in some outside resources to assist us with this as well. We want to make sure we get it right. Yeah. Well, it's a residence hall, so presumably it was students, but that's one of the things we're still working on.
What did the 911 call come in for? What was being reported?
I don't have that information. We are not self-dispatched. That would be through the Platteville Police Department.
Do you know of any weapons involved?
At this point, we're still investigating that.
What happened? Was anyone injured, taken off campus? I know it's a sensitive issue.
Well, there was a transport, but in order to protect their privacy at this point, we aren't releasing any other details at this point.
And it was one individual or multiple?
We're still working on that.
What outside agencies are involved in assisting?
Department of Criminal Investigations through the state. Since we are a state agency, we reached out to them to help us. And Platteville and the Sheriff's Department too, Grant County also assisted us initially.
Were there any fatalities in this incident?
We're still working on that.
Do you have any details of the incident that you can share? You know, we've received some reports, a lot of word of mouth is very, very similar. What can you let us know, I guess, for peace of mind for individuals that are here?
Well, it was isolated, as I said, so that should give some pause, I would hope. It's something that we were there immediately to look into, and I'm not deliberately being vague. I apologize for that, but as I said, we want to make sure we get it right and protect the privacy of the individuals that were involved in this.
Do you have an idea when the details or more details of this might be able to be released?
We're probably going to be releasing some more tonight, I believe, but I don't know to what extent and what details that we'll be releasing. Yeah.
Shifting to academia, how will this affect, in the coming days, we've got sponsors and engineers for senior design projects and graduation coming up. How will this impact that?
Well, commencement occurred already, so that's taken care of. Senior design projects, sponsors, we had some events on campus. The events on campus have been canceled, and the Office of the Dean of each college is ready to address the senior design group projects, papers to be submitted. Some of those can be done indirectly, but that office will manage that. There's so many varied situations on this campus that it's impossible to address it as a whole. Thank you for understanding.
I think a lot of students might have been moving out during this time, maybe he's in town helping them with this move-out process. Are there a lot of people in town who might have witnessed this, and what is your message to the families who had to see police presence and fear on campus?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are concerned about this right now, and that is what we're focused on, is supporting them, you know, supporting our students, supporting our campus community, our faculty, staff, and any members of the public. That's what we're focused on right now.
What resources are available for them?
Hi, good evening. Amber Monroe, M-O-N-R-O-E. I'm the Dean of Students, and so we are making counseling services available. We'll have triage from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for all students starting tomorrow through Friday. And then for those who are directly impacted, they're getting individual communication as to how they can access counseling directly this evening.
You mentioned this incident happened in a residence hall. Can you confirm if it was in one dorm, in a common space?
I can confirm that it's in Wilgus Hall, so it was in Wilgus Hall residence.
Ambulance transport to a hospital?
Someone was transported. As I said, we're still working on notifications and other things and investigations, so it's still very fluid. And
Can you tell us the nature of those injuries for that individual since they did?
I don't have that information.
You're planning to hold another press conference tonight, because I know you said you
Might be releasing more information, or where can we get the updates?
University will make official statements on their webpage. I don't know if we're going to have another conference tonight. I doubt it at this point because we still have a lot of work to do.
For students that reside in that residence hall that are still living on campus, what arrangements are being made for them? What's going to happen for students that live in that building?
We're working on accommodations for all the students in that building. I can't say at this point. Not while I was there.
Okay, folks, we've been listening in to a briefing with police and university officials in Wisconsin. This was regarding an incident that happened earlier today on the campus of University of Wisconsin-Platteville. Sounded like it might have happened in a residence hall called Wilgus, but really not getting a lot of detail yet from authorities on specifics of what happened, other than clearly it was a disturbing incident. It's caused a lot of emotional havoc. They're offering counseling, they're canceling exams, but we've yet to hear any sort of confirmation of what happened. What was the incident, and were there any people injured, anything like that. So we'll keep monitoring this live feed for you here on Live Impact News, and we'll break in as we see anything that is a big development. But we do want to turn back to our original feed that we wanted to bring you, which was an earlier signing of legislation for what's called the Take It Down Act. And we mentioned that this was signed today by President Trump alongside First Lady Melania Trump, who we're told was a big champion of this measure, taking aim by providing stronger penalties for folks and actually requiring stronger measures to take down revenge pornography, deepfake pornography. So we want to listen in now on some of these early remarks, and we will continue our coverage here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Good afternoon and welcome to the White House. It's an honor to join you here today for the signing of the Take It Down Act, a national victory that will help parents and families protect children from online exploitation. This legislation is a powerful step forward in our efforts to ensure that every American, especially young people, can feel better protected from their image or identity being abused through non-consensual, intimate imagery of INCII. Artificial intelligence and social media are the digital candy for the next generation. Sweet, addictive, and engineered to have an impact on the cognitive development of our children. But unlike sugar, these new technologies can be weaponized, shape beliefs, and sadly affect emotions and even be deadly. Over the past few months, I have met with brave survivors, deeply loving families, and caring advocates who know firsthand the emotional and psychological toll of NCII and deepfake abuse. Alliston Berry, stood boldly for change, despite the risk posed to her and her family by speaking out and making her voice heard. Alliston, your voice and the voices of so many like you made this bill a national priority. Many thanks to members of Congress, both parties, for passing this legislation, including Speaker Johnson, Senator Cruz, Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman Salazar, Congresswoman Dean, and Congressman Guthrie, and so many more. Thank you all for coming together to prioritize people over politics. As First Lady, my Be Best initiative is focused on improving children's well-being, encouraging kindness, and creating a safer online environment for our youth. Today, I'm proud to say that the values of Be Best will be reflected in the law of the land. I want to thank my husband, President Trump, for standing with us on this effort. His signature on this new law is not where our work ends on this issue. Now we look to the Federal Trade Commission and the private sector to do their part. Today, through the Take It Down Act, we affirm that the well-being of our children is central to our future of our families and America. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the President. Thank you.
Great job. That was a great job. Well, I want to thank everybody. We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. So, but I want to thank Melania and for your leadership in this very important issue. It's an amazing issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. I would tell you she is very dedicated. In fact, if you look at just what I heard, Putin just said they respect your wife a lot. I said, what about me? They like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I also want to congratulate the First Lady in securing $25 million in the first fiscal year, 2026, budget to provide housing and support for youth transitioning out of foster care. And I can say that she loves children, and you really worked very hard on this, and you had a lot of help from some friends of mine right here, and a lot of the senators are here and congressmen, and I appreciate you all being here. We're also grateful to be joined by people that are just in love with what we're doing. It's such an important situation, and commissioners of the Federal Trade Commission and the CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino. Where are you, Linda? Where are you, Linda? Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Stand up. Thank you, Linda. Great job. You're doing a great job. It's a big deal, right? That's great. Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subject's consent, take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy. Too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive. That's true, and it's so horrible. With the rise of AI image generation, countless women have been harassed with deepfakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is the wrong, and it's just so horribly wrong. And it's a very abusive situation, like in some cases people have never seen before. And today we're making it totally illegal. Thank you. Upon hearing the stories of so many women affected, our First Lady made stopping these abuses a top priority, and she was given tremendous support because she'd go up to people and talk about it. They say, yeah, we know about it. We have the problem. Can we do something? And she did something about it with the help of a lot of the people, especially the political people sitting here today. Among Melania's guests in the gallery during my address to the joint session of Congress was a 15-year-old young person, Elliston Berry, whose image was turned into an illicit deepfake by a peer. Elliston, where are you? Are you around? Stand up, darling. That's fine. Beautiful. It's great. Thank you. It's fantastic. Elliston quickly became a powerful advocate committed to preventing other girls from suffering the same abuse. Elliston, we salute you and we thank you very much, and it's an honor to have you with us today. Great job you've done. Also with us are several other brave Americans whose lives were rocked by online harassment, including Francesca Manny, as well as a South Carolina State Representative, Brandon Guffey, and his family, who've lost their son to suicide after he was targeted in an internet extortion scam, of which you have a lot of them. A lot. I want to thank you both for your incredible work and to reach this important day. Could you stand up, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job. I've read about it. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, you were just listening in there to some earlier remarks from President Trump, and we also heard from First Lady Melania Trump on this new measure that was just signed into law today. We talked about this being called the Take It Down Act, taking aim at revenge pornography, deepfake pornography, essentially non-consensual imagery online of a sexual nature. And you heard in the president's remarks there him referencing a South Carolina representative. We have him with us right now, joining us on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Brandon Guffey joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time. You were there in the Rose Garden as that measure was being signed into law, and we've talked about your push for years now to try to strengthen some of these protections online and punishments online for people who try to take advantage of folks via this sextortion and other measures. Could you tell us how you were feeling being there alongside the president as he was signing this measure, which was, we discussed before, overwhelmingly passed in Congress? Folks really wanted to see this measure done.
Yeah, it's overwhelming for me as a representative to think, 2.5 years ago, whenever I kind of made this my passion to be sitting at the White House and having, the First Lady as such a big advocate and so many senators. I mean, it passed 99 senators out of the Senate. So, only one person really opposing the bill, and to think that we have come that far is just overwhelming, but it's showing what a major problem this is across the country and why we need to address it.
Yeah, and some of the measures that we see within the legislation, prison fines are both for folks who violate this law, restitution, the fact that there are restrictions or essentially requirements for websites to comply and their timelines. For example, within 48 hours, certain videos have to be taken down if victims request this. This is, just one stab at trying to conquer what we are learning to be a pretty big problem. We've seen, as far as recent reporting, the FBI reporting over 13,000 cases of sextortion between October of 2021 and March of 2023. So we know this is a big problem out there. And you've been very candid about why this is such a near and dear cause to your heart, and that's the loss of your son. And we're so sorry that you had to go through that. But can you talk about how that loss has really fueled this push for you to want to make some changes?
Well, I mean, I think as with anyone who loses a child, and it's one thing to lose a child, but it's another to know that your child chose to take their life. The most important thing is, I will fight until the day that I die to make sure that another child does not feel that way, that is the only option. And, just to be honest, if we're not fighting to protect this next generation, then what are we even doing? It baffles me at the amount of people that can sit here and argue to remove a book from a library because they claim parental rights. But whenever we start talking about protecting kids online, they want to start screaming First Amendment, First Amendment. We've got to start standing up and doing what's right to protect our next generation. And I believe that starts with ensuring that our kids are protected online and we don't have predators from another country like that attacked my son coming into his bedroom while the family's asleep at night.
And I mean, we know that not only have you pushed for legislation and changes on that front, but we also know that you've filed a suit against Meta saying that there wasn't enough done. There are not enough protections in place on that front as far as protecting younger users. I mean, it just feels like there are so many different avenues that parents and I guess even at this point government are trying to handle, to take on, just to try to make sure that not only our young people, but folks across the nation are better protected from predators, if you will. Can you talk about just trying to wrap your arms around such a large issue for so many folks?
Well, it's very difficult whenever you've had 25 years to protect kids online and you've done nothing. And that's the case that we're in. In 1996, they passed the COPA law, which basically says that anyone 13 or older, these companies cannot be held liable for what's put on their website. And that is ridiculous. I mean, everything else we judge by 18 and under. Take it down as a huge first step to allow, if these images get posted, to not only criminally punish the person that posts them up to 3 years if it's a minor, but in addition to force these companies to have to pay a fine if they don't take them down. The sad part is these big tech companies, these are the world's richest companies, and they're aware of the problems and they have done nothing to implement true change. I use the example often of Meta pulling down 63,000 sextortion accounts in one day from one country, that was Lagos, Nigeria, and just off of Instagram. Now, did they do that to keep those platforms or to build it up and find out these were sextortionists just so they could get a good PR stunt and remove them in one day? Or did they have the capability to truly remove them all in one day? Either way, they're a bad actor because nothing's been done since. They're only interested in profit, and we've got to learn to protect our kids online. And everyone can say this is a parent's job to do so, but there's no law to keep a child from going into a Walmart and buying a device on their own, setting up an entire account at 13 years of age. And there's nothing that a parent can do to stop it. At least take it down will be a tool and a step in the right direction. And not only for real images, but for artificial intelligent images as well, which we are seeing a huge rise in. So I'm very grateful that they're seeing that, but we still have a long way to go to protect children online.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, what would you like to see done next? You said this is a great first step. What would be a second step perhaps for you, or even a third step if you want to even go down that road further? I'm just curious as far as policy.
There's a few different policies. Number one, I would love to see Section 230 repealed. If these companies could be held liable, then they would make the changes immediately. But they put so much money into lobbying. I think it was $500 million last year in trying to kill the Kids Online Safety Act. It's very difficult to fight against things like that. I think the next step would be an App Store Accountability Act, which I've introduced in South Carolina as well, which basically says you have 3 app stores, Apple, Google, and Amazon, and And the parent should be able to choose by giving the age whenever they're setting up a phone. And if it is an app that is not appropriate for someone that is under the age of 18, then it's not available to that child. There's no questions asked. How do you allow a child to sign a contract to agree to these terms and conditions without getting a parent's input to begin with? You know, I often say that big tech is the equivalent of big tobacco of this generation. And I think that's the perfect example. What did we do whenever we saw that cigarettes were causing so much harm? We were still dealing with a big lobby coming out against us. But what we had to do was we had to age gate it. We had to issue warnings, and then we had to educate. And awareness is 90% of the battle. The problem is people don't understand how dangerous this is until it hits home.
I mean, we've done a lot of reporting recently, and specifically, I can think back to a special that we had here on WCNC Plus back in January during Human Trafficking Awareness Month, where we dove into some of the statistics and we spoke with experts. And I remember sitting down with a founder of essentially a nonprofit in our area that helps survivors, teen girls specifically, who are survivors of sex trafficking and exploitation. And I remember she shared with me that pretty much anywhere online that people can communicate, have a chat, you know, any sort of messaging is where they're seeing predators trying to access these children. And I think that really astounded me to hear. And I feel like that's kind of going in hand with some of the discussions that we're seeing right now to try to curb social media use. And so I guess curious on your take, you know, over the years of how your view might have evolved regarding social media, online access. I feel like there was a point in time where, you know, the web was a wide world of, you know, new ideas and such. And I think now we're starting to get an idea that there's a dark side to things as well.
Well, I mean, it's no different than whenever, you know, I grew up in the 80s and it was nothing for you to walk a mile to school out on a main road. And then you started seeing all the kidnapping stories. And the reason the kidnappers were there is because kids were there. And I think it's the same thing with being online, whether it's on a gaming profile or not. But bottom line is, if we had the age of the people who are on there or on that platform, we wouldn't have to worry about whether they are, you know, playing with other friends or you're allowing adults to come in here. And I know that becomes a murky, you know, I'm more of a libertarian, so it becomes murky in trying to do something like that. And that's the reason I think things such as the App Store, whenever you're setting up a phone, because it's linked directly with your IMEI. You know, in addition, I am working, the company that I work for is called CyberDive out of Arizona, and they're a startup tech company that is essentially giving the children the ability to have a phone, but the parent can see everything that's on the screen without having to get app permissions. And I believe that is one of the ways to go about it, because it's similar to whenever we passed a seatbelt law. You know, immediately, if you were 16, whenever the seatbelt law passed, you had a hard time following that law. But if you were raised from the early childhood age and you were brought up wearing a seatbelt, then you knew to protect yourself. So I think devices like that are another way for us to train. But ultimately, it boils down to education and awareness, and ensuring that the companies that are providing these services are at least doing what they can to protect children. And what we've seen through whistleblowers is they are going just the opposite way. They are aware of the problems and they could care less about solving the problem.
If I could, I did want to ask you if you had an update on the criminal case regarding your son, because at last check back in January, we had reported that there was someone who was extradited from Nigeria being held responsible for eventually, unfortunately, and as we said, heartbreakingly so, your son taking his own life. Is there anything upcoming with that case? Because I think at last check we saw that there was an indictment, but are there anything, any developments coming up soon?
Yeah, there is a pre-trial hearing coming up on the 24th, but that doesn't mean that his attorneys aren't going to request more time. But I do have that marked on my calendar right now for that pretrial hearing, because he did plead not guilty. So therefore he could, really be trying to, I guess, bolster his case. And I can't really go into too much more detail than that because of the trial, if that makes sense.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we let you go tonight, either about this topic, about the case itself, as we just referenced, anything you'd like to share with folks who are watching here on Live Impact News?
My personal message, whether it is, teens, number one, I would like to say that, look, you're not perfect. No one is. You're going to make mistakes. And for us parents, we really need to understand and we need to relearn what grace is, because we have gotten to this point to where we act as if we are perfect and we haven't made mistakes. But bottom line is we are all going to fall short. We're always going to fall short and make mistakes. And the only time in life that you're carried is the day that you die. Imagine if you just had 6 people to help lift you up and be there for you as you made a mistake. This world could be such a better place. And just understand that the mistakes that you make are not going to define who you are, but help you become the person that you're meant to be.
An incredible message. We appreciate you taking the time. Representative Brandon Guffey joining us from D.C., we believe, still at this point. And
yes.
We always appreciate your candor and taking the time to speak about what we know is a very difficult situation for your family, but obviously one that has spurred a drive to change things and prevent it from happening to other folks. So thank you so much.
Well, y'all are such a big part in raising that awareness. Without being able to talk, I can't tell you how many times I have a conversation, and just by someone seeing or hearing something, it saves kids' lives, and that's what it's about.
Yeah. All right. Indeed. Thank you so much. We're going to sign off with you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, and keep us posted. Anything developing on all of your fronts. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So folks there, of course, we see we're wrapping up with Representative Brandon Guffey. Regarding the Take It Down Act, which we shared with you just a few moments ago, some snippets from the signing with President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. We want to continue on here on Live Impact News with WCNC Plus, this big story from over the weekend, getting an update today. Just this afternoon, we learned more about that ship collision with the Brooklyn Bridge, a Mexican tall ship that collided with the bridge. And there's an investigation underway right now into any of the factors that might have led up to this. And there are a few things that are being questioned, which you'll hear in this briefing from the NTSB in just a moment. But unfortunately, a situation where there was loss of life, two sailors lost their lives, and 19 folks were injured. So let's listen in to the full update now.
Guatemala struck the Brooklyn Bridge on the East River, damaging the ship's 3 masts. Local authorities have reported that there were 277 personnel on board. Unfortunately, we had 2 fatalities during the bridge strike. And before I go any further, on behalf of the NTSB, I wish to express my most sincere condolences to the families and loved ones of those who lost their lives in this terrible tragedy. The NTSB arrived on scene late yesterday afternoon and throughout the evening, and our first day on scene was this morning, starting today. We are here to gather perishable evidence, and that's what we will be doing the whole time we will be on scene, and that'll take as many days as it needs to be. This is the start of a long process. We will not be drawing any conclusions. We will not speculate. We will also not be determining the probable cause while we're on scene. The information that we provide today, is preliminary, and is subject to change throughout the investigation. What you can expect from us is within 30 days we will have a preliminary report. Investigations take normally between 12 months to 24 months, with one stipulation. If we see some significant safety issue during the investigative process, we could We are currently working with our counterparts with the Mexican government to gain access to the ship. We are optimistic that we will have that access very soon. In the meantime, we are working to set up parties to the investigation. The U.S. Coast Guard is always a party to a marine investigation. They're automatically a party. And we thank them for getting on scene very quickly. And we do appreciate all their support so far and supporting our lead in this investigation. The bridge team from our Office of Highway Safety has been working today with the New York City Department of Transportation, and they were doing a survey with the department there, and they have affirmed at this point that there is no significant structural damage to the load-bearing elements of the bridge. There is some damage on one of the travelers, which they use to access and survey the bridge at this point, but nothing structural from the bridge is an issue at this point. I will point out that the NTSB has long had an interest in bridge safety, including bridge strikes. Just 2 months ago, we released an interim investigative report about the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore after it was struck by the Dolly, in which we made urgent safety recommendations to numerous bridge owners. These included recommendations to calculate the risk of bridge collapse after being struck by a ship, and if that risk is over an industry threshold, to take steps to mitigate the risk. We have received comments back from the New York City Department of Transportation. We just received it. We're in the process of evaluating it, but accordingly they have reported that they have run the assessment and their threshold, their calculation is below the threshold. Sure, you bet. Our recorders group today, they've been canvassing the shoreline along the area where the accident is, trying to assess any closed-circuit TV and security cameras, and they have had some success today. We are very well aware that there's a lot of video out there on social media, people from cell phones and the such, and we would ask if you have video to first email us at witness@ntsb.gov. Again, that's witness@ntsb.gov. And we ask that you email us not the video, but that you have some. We will then send you a link to upload that video. We also have two personnel with us from our Office of Transportation Disaster Assistance, and they have been coordinating outreach with the Office of the Mayor of New York City, and we appreciate having them on scene. I will now turn it over to our investigator in charge, Brian Young, to give us some preliminary factual information. Brian?
Thank you. Based on preliminary navigational data, I can provide the following timeline for the vessel's movements in New York. The vessel arrived on May 13th around noon and docked port side 2 at Pier 17. The vessel remained there for about 3 days, and at 8:20 p.m. on May 17th, with the assistance of a tugboat, began backing away from Pier 17. The intent was to sail south down the East River and head for sea. Preliminary weather report at this time was dusk conditions westerly winds about 10 knots, and the current was about 0.3 knots towards the bridge. Upon departing the pier, the vessel's astern motion and speed increased up to 6 knots. And at 20:24 or 8:24 p.m., a VHF radio broadcast was sounded requesting assistance from other tugboats in the area of the Brooklyn Bridge. That was followed by 2 other requests for assistance, and at 8:24 and 45 seconds, the vessel's mast struck the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge. At 8:27, the vessel came to a stop, and at 8:30, both NYPD and FDNY assets were on scene.
Thank you, Brian. Please follow us on X at NTSB_newsroom. Again, that's at NTSB_newsroom for any additional updates or further briefings. And before we get to questions, I want to thank all the first responders who were on scene, and they were on scene very quickly within 5 minutes of the bridge strike. And I'd also like to thank the ongoing coordination by the New York City Emergency Management. We appreciate all the work that they do and all the first responders. I'm going to take some questions, and before I do, I would ask that you raise your hand, and when I call on you, please state your name and affiliation, and we will do our best to restate the question for everybody in the room. First hand right there.
Hi, Lauren Lasper, WABC TV. In some of the video, we see a tugboat. We don't see it tethered. But this is as of leaving Pier 17. Can you talk to the role of that tugboat and whether it was helpful or perhaps even harmful in the movements of this tall ship?
Thank you. The question regards the status of the tugboat alongside the vessel. As far as we know at this time, the tugboat had assisted the vessel moving off the pier, and part of our investigation will be to look into the tugboat's policies and procedures for the operation once helping the vessel get off the pier, what its guidance would be and what its the job it would have to do. Right here.
Chris Mankley from CBS News. 2 questions. Any sense that there's a data recorder, a voice recorder on this ship to obtain? And it sounds like from your timeline, whatever went wrong happened very quickly after that tugboat got it out off the pier. Is that right?
The first question was about any recording devices on board the vessel, such as a VDR, a voyage data recorder. Our recorders group, once getting aboard the vessel, will make a full assessment of any recording devices, and we will capture that information and retrieve it. And the other question was, it was approximately 5 minutes from the time the vessel started coming astern to the time they struck the bridge. Yes.
So you don't know at this point if there's a recorder?
We don't know at this time, not yet.
Right here.
Why did you decide to opt using a towboat? And then, as far as what you're exploring is what might have caused this ship to hit the bridge, has there been any discussion over whether this was in
All right, folks, so you're seeing there the update from NTSB from earlier today on the Brooklyn Bridge collision. Of course, as we continue to watch here the live drive, this is the severe weather camera that is roving around in the Kansas area. We are going to keep an eye on the tornado threats out in the Midwest, and of course, we'll have any updates from there. Plus, of course, your local updates coming up at 11 on WCNC+. We turn you now to our next program.